Long 5-minute break.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I got the signature.
Good for you.
I understand that.
Waiting on you.
It's supposed to snow tonight.
Time now.
Sorry. Thanks. Thanks, sir.
We had started at 6:23. Hey, sir.
For those of y'all that
Oh.
were here for the first 2 hours, we did the invocation and the pledge there, so we're just going to move on into our regular scheduled board meeting. We're running a little late due to the workshop. Anyone have any problems with that? Not, we'll just move on to the first item of business. Approval of minutes from December 19, 2017, regular scheduled board meeting. Any changes, corrections? Have a motion to approve?
Motion approved.
Got a motion to approve by Commissioner Sessions, second by Commissioner Fleming. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed, same side. Moving on to consent, we got 2 through 9. Any wishing to be pulled for discussion? Hearing none, I need a motion to approve 2 through 9.
Motion to approve 2 through 9.
Second.
Got a motion to approve by Commissioner Richardson, second by Commissioner Hale. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed, same sign. All right, moving on to staff reports. Catherine Allen, Suwannee County Extension Director.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
All right, Chairman, Commissioners, we got lots of stuff coming up. But I did want to first make sure that you guys had a pen and a piece of paper because I wanted you to put down a couple of dates. May 11th or May 11th or September 14th. You guys had given some money to our ag agent, Dee Broughton, to do some ag awareness tours and other things. And those are going to be a couple of the dates that she has scheduled. So I want to make sure that those get in your calendar. And we'll give you more information as we have it, but I wanted you to block out one of those 2 dates so that we have that.
And being that you mentioned that, y'all forgive me, she wrote a thank you card a while back, and I've got it sitting on the desk, and I keep forgetting to make copies of it and distribute it in y'all's box. So she did say thank you.
Thank you.
It's on me, yeah, she sent it.
And she's also planning a legislative tour, so at some point, we don't have that date yet, but we will probably need some of your help to get some of our legislators from the Suwannee Valley area on that tour bus or tour times so that they can see the kinds of things that are going on and understand the community a little bit better and the natural resources. So our horticulture agent, Carolyn Staft, she does she oversees the Master Gardener program, and the Master Gardeners are very active. They have seed libraries, the seed lending library, not only in Live Oak, but at Dowling Park and Branford, and that's every month, but they also do workshops. So for example, in Live Oak, the second Wednesday of the month, in January, they're doing one on irrigation. In February, they're doing one on alternative containers for plants. And in March, they're doing straw bale beds, that always gets a lot of attention when we go and display it at festivals and different events. So those are classes that wouldn't necessarily have had the opportunity to get out there to the community and share that information without all that train the trainer model that we have with the volunteers. She is doing lunch and learns as well. So in January, if you want to learn about vermiculture, which is basically worm composting. In February, they're doing attracting beneficial wildlife, which includes bees and bats and other beneficial insects. And then March, we have herbs in the landscape. We also, as you know, out at the center, that has turned back into a research center. And we have a hydroponic workshops that we do out there that are basically attended worldwide. And we're starting to get some of the same attraction or people coming to the class for small-scale mushroom production. And that is for commercial growers. So that class will be in February, and that's $120 to attend that. But we do also have a homeowner one. So if homeowners have an interest, they'll take home 2 oyster mushroom bags as well as a shiitake mushroom log. And it's a lot less expensive. It's $40, and that'll be at the extension office. So we do have those coming up. And we also have a cattleman series coming up. This is Jane Griffin, one of our new ag agents. She's got this 3-part series that really covers all aspects of the beef cattle production. And so each night it'll start at 6. It'll be February 13th, it'll be cattle handling and management. March 13th will be cattle nutrition, and April 10th will be herd health management. So it will include dinner. There's a better price if you go to all 3, or you can pick individual ones. But again, these are research-based classes that we do that are to the benefit of the community. So we do encourage people and want to let you know so that if your constituents have questions about things that are going on, that they do have a local resource that they can go to. There will also be a North Florida Pasture Management School, and that's a 2-day event. That one, she's part of a collaborative group that works on that, and that one will actually be held in Bronson. But our agent here is involved in that, and people from our area can go to that. Also, just wanted to give you a heads up that one of our volunteers that comes and works in our office, Pat Mitchell, she's writing a book on some of her history, and she's going to be doing something out at the library on Thursday for the Lunch and Learn at noon. So hope that you guys will all attend those things as well. The last thing I wanted to mention is Kim Griffin, our Family and Consumer Sciences agent, has worked with a specialist at UF, and she is part of a grant that is coming to Suwannee County. And this is a little different in that she is going to be working with the faith community, looking at health and nutrition. And the reason why this is a little different is the support system that is available through the faith community. One of the things that we've learned through the research that we've done with rural weight management is that support system is really important if you want to continue to keep the weight off. And people don't always take us seriously when we talk about the importance of developing those relationships, whether it's at home, at work, wherever those are. And with the faith community, they already have kind of this natural support community. And if we can encourage those faith communities to have what we call, they call them environmental supports. So basically, it's helping to create the environment to help them do the right thing. Then it makes it easier for those people to, eat healthy and be active. And so this is going to be a 12-week project that starts in February. And one of the things I did want to mention is that this grant also includes funding for a program assistant. So that position is open until January 26th. So if you know of anybody that might be interested in that, it is a part-time position. So it might be somebody who is retired or maybe has other interests or other activities that they're utilizing. The salary is between 13 and 15 based on experience, and they'll be based at our office next to the Coliseum in Live Oak. We're part of 4 counties that are taking part in this project, and this project comes out of South Carolina State University, where they've had good success with it. So we're looking forward to this project. It's a little different than something that we've undertaken here in Suwannee County at the Extension Office before. Any questions?
Could you send me some information on that health and nutrition?
Sure. And I have actually just a one-page primer that if you want my notes on it, I can give that to you and then send you more information as well. If somebody is interested in that position, they would have to go through University of Florida. So they'll go to UF Jobs, and they'll search through Suwannee, and that's how they'll find it. If they have any questions, they can always call the office, and we'll help them out with that.
All right. When's the next pesticide application school?
There is a pesticide school, and she didn't give that to me, but she did mention that. So I will make a note and email that information to you, but we do pesticide training and exams at the office, and I know there is one coming up.
And,
Thank you.
and when was that pasture management?
Pasture
process?
management will be, let's see, she didn't tell me the dates on that one.
Okay.
And that one's going to be, I told you, Bronson, tickets are $50, include lunch for both days. You get 4 pesticide CEUs for that one, and it includes the notebooks. But I can get that for you as well.
With Jane's running that?
Jane's running that,
Thanks.
yeah.
One more question. The May 11th, September 14th, what are those specific dates for?
February
You mentioned it, I
13th.
just missed every bit of it. Looking for one.
So there's a Spring Cattleman Series that goes February 13th, March
the-
13th, April 10th.
First thing you mentioned, May 11th.
So the May 11th and September 14th, those are the tours where you can learn more about the community, specifically targeting ag production. And I'll tell you that when I first came to Suwannee County, I was part of a tour where we took decision makers around, and it was fascinating. People have no clue about the amazing things that are being done right here in Suwannee County. And so the more that we can highlight and showcase the neat things that are being done and really the breadth and depth that we have going on here, it's eye-opening. And so we'd like to share that experience with other people.
Anyone else? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Moving on to general business, discuss with possible board action capital improvement plan. Turn our attention to Mr. Harris.
Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, when we adopted our first capital improvement plan, I think it was 2 years ago maybe, it said in the narrative at the time that we needed to try to look at it every year if possible, that it would need to be revisited from time to time and updated. I don't know that we looked at it again last year because we were trying to wrap up the state attorney's office. But what you have in your packet is really a rough list that I'd like to talk about briefly. We did, you'll note that we did add the infrastructure projects that we talked about. In fact, the board had already voted to add those infrastructure projects to the capital improvement plan. So really, this is the first opportunity we've had to bring it back before the board with some other things that we have discussed. Some of our discussion occurred during the budget workshops. So it starts out with, and I've probably talked to some of you about this already, county administration building. And for those that may know, I'm talking about the building that administration and public works shares together. The old administration building is the building, for those that may be more familiar with that facility, is the 2-story red brick building that houses the building department and zoning. Years ago, we had an administration office upstairs. It consists of several small offices, a very small little conference room, had a little round table in it. And we moved into the building that we're currently in. We reduced staff. We've created a lot of efficiencies and saved a great deal of money in doing so. The benefit that we've realized since that time, apart from those savings, is that, and this wasn't contemplated at the time, but later we filled that upstairs with storage from constitutional officers, building and zoning departments and others. The supervisor of elections equipment is up there. I think at least 3 rooms are dedicated to the voting equipment. So thankfully, that facility was available when we tore down the Nettie Basin School, because a lot of that stuff that's stored upstairs now used to be in the Nettie Basin School, and it had to be removed. One thing the county has suffered tremendously over many, many years is adequate storage space for records. Any number of different types of records and equipment for the supervisor of elections. We have had items stored in facilities that simply don't pass the test. And there are specific state requirements associated with some of that. But I think the building where things are stored today is probably the best location they've ever been stored. Lots of items that were in the school were thrown away. The sheriff had a lot of old stuff that I'm sure he had to surplus. The clerk did as well. Rooms filled with old equipment that was obsolete, outdated, that had to be thrown out. But now, if you've visited our office, Administration and Public Works, you will note that because we are continuing to live in the paper age, that we are about to work ourselves out of work area because we're storing file boxes all around us. And that building is shrinking up rapidly, and it has been. Literally, it's been at least 5 years. But we're all out of space now. So we're trying to remedy some of that. We're going digital on everything, planning to scan everything, set up electronic files and data formats that we can utilize. It'll make things more efficient in the office, but we still have to have storage. Those of you that were around when we were negotiating with Klossner and others know that we don't have a suitable conference room anywhere under the auspices of the county commission. The tiny conference room that we have in our building out there is going to become an office, and it's currently got a lot of file boxes in it that we're going to have to store somewhere. If you come in here next meeting and have file boxes stacked across the front right here, don't be surprised. We've got to have a place to put this stuff. But we need to add on to the building, and I've come up with a very conservative guesstimate on what it's going to cost to do that. You've got that in this detail, along with new ductwork for that building, which it's actually needed for probably 5 or 6 years or more. Mark can tell you it's been patched on over the years, and we've about patched until we can't patch any longer. So that needs to be replaced. The supervisor of elections office, which we've talked about previously, it was in the original capital improvement plan. At the time that we started, we did not own the Mizell building. So those that have looked closely, some of you have even commented that the Mizell building, once renovated, would probably take care of the supervisor of elections for a long time in the future, and I agree with that. The block portion of that building could become office space, which is larger than what she has now. That large warehouse on the back of the building, once renovated with new siding and new metal roof, etc., a portion of that would have to be framed in and climate controlled to store that voting equipment. I would anticipate putting a loading dock on the back of the building so that when it's time to move equipment around the county for voting, trucks can back in there and load that equipment and take it to its destination. It'll be a lot more efficient than it has been in the past. A portion of that building, I know the sheriff has inmate records stored in at least a couple of the smaller rooms on the south end of the building. And then we blocked in, if you recall, when we were building the state attorney's office and that new parking lot on that side, we had to tear down part of the old framed-in building, move it back, and then we poured a slab and built a block wall there where their parking and little car wash was restored in that area. So the sheriff will continue to need some area there associated with the jail, and I would anticipate that some of that space where the new slab and block wall is, and potentially those two offices, I'm not sure yet, would satisfy some of the need that he has for the jail. And they've done a pretty good job. In fact, he's got one man that works for him, does a great job of eliminating things. So they've gotten rid of a lot of stuff. Some of that old material used to be stored in the storage containers that were on site that had to be relocated as well. You've got a number in here associated with the renovation. What I anticipate is that if supervisor of elections then relocates to that building, then it frees up that small frame structure that she's in right now, which can then become storage for the tax collector. And it would be very convenient because it's right across the street from the tax collector's office. When we move into the conversation regarding the sheriff and the multiple needs that he has, we had a brief conversation the other day. I kind of gave him short notice on this, but I was trying to get a feel for where he thought we might be with respect to the jail. When we started the capital improvement plan, I had a conversation with the previous sheriff. We talked about a 7-year time horizon and where we thought we might be with respect to the jail and other facilities at the time. And Sheriff Cameron indicated that he thought that 7 years, we might be in dire need of some additional jail space. In fact, before I make my next statement, is there anyone on this board right now that believes that we need to try to add to where we are downtown right now onto that jail?
We're gonna add it.
I think it was a horrible idea. I wasn't here at the time, and it's easy,
Where you
to
gonna add on to?
be critical. We paid a fortune for
Yeah, the
storage,
parking lot will go up.
water retention down there. I don't think it should have ever been built there, but that's my opinion, and I wasn't here at the time to play politics with those that were playing politics. But by the time that jail was built, I think most of the counties in the state had realized that we didn't live in the western cowboy days anymore, where the jail is right next door to the courthouse. So it was constructed there for whatever reason. But most counties have long recognized that you build jails in rural areas where land is cheaper and you can obtain more property so that you've got plenty of room for expansion in the future. And unfortunately, where that jail is located, there's no room for expansion. It took years to finally come to some agreement on paying a property owner next door because of the property that was taken in for water retention right there. It's just a bad location, very expensive design. And most of you that drive around, even state facilities, county facilities and state facilities for storage of inmates are not constructed in that fashion. Multiple story buildings are very expensive. They're usually built in single story. Drive by the state prison out there and you'll see there are far more cost-effective ways to build. In any event, I gave you a number in here, in that section under the sheriff, subsection C, I put $1.5 million a year. And that sounds like a great deal of money until you start looking at the pricing of jails and what it's going to cost to build them. I think you're going to be surprised. I think it's a conservative number. Clearly, it's one that we can't afford to fund right now, but it needs to be a part of our target if we agree that we're going to have to start working towards that purpose. We're going to have to figure out how we're going to start setting some money aside, and that's a significant amount. Right now, the sheriff did provide me some average numbers on inmates that are being housed over there. The capacity at the current jail, true inmate bed space, is 224. 224. The monthly average over the past 3 years, going back to 2015, monthly average inmates 162, dropped to 157 in 2016, and it's up to 175 in 2017. 175. Now, there have been multiple occasions where throughout 2017 they were up over 200, and the sheriff had to try to figure out how to manage that. So it's getting pretty serious. When I talked to Sheriff Cameron, that was at least 2 years ago, maybe 2.5 years ago, and we were looking at a 7-year time horizon. So if we push this out to another 7 years from now, I mean, we know that there's a good chance we're not going to have the capacity that we need.
No.
So when you look at $1.5 million, that doesn't go very far. If I had to guess right now, I'd say we're probably going to spend between $8 and $10 million on a facility. So,
I have a question.
yes, sir.
Do you know the dollar amount, well, you probably couldn't give it to me tonight, cost to build that one?
No. No, but I
One to one.
wouldn't build like that one.
I don't know. I think it'll cost $500,000 for a roof replacement.
What's the,
I'm not saying that we build one exactly just like that one, but what did that one cost when it was built?
I don't know. I really don't. What I will tell you is that if you look at your typical construction today, it's going to be a combination of steel columns with free-span roofs, metal roofs, and then you're going to have, the concrete slabs and block walls or poured walls, something of that nature. they close in underneath essentially what's a pole barn.
Yeah,
That's
and
your-
it depends on the standard you build it to. It's following different, can't remember the correct word, but a lot of your prisons now and jails are prefab. They bring them in 4-block sections.
Section 2, yeah.
Just depends on what floor plan you go with and what style of facility you decide to build. A lot of electronics, a lot of wiring, so it's not going to be cheap.
Is there a lot of grant money, is there a lot of grant money available, or some grant money available for new prisons? New jails?
I'm not aware of any grants that are available for building jails. I'm not.
This isn't something we're trying to decide on tonight.
No, I was just
Let me try to cover some of this stuff, and just so that you get a pretty good feel for where we are. Also, I think we had mentioned back in the budget workshops, the Sheriff's Operations Center out here on 136. Criminal Division, I think, is what the sheriff calls it. In any event, the roof is bad. We know the roof is bad, and it's going to need to be replaced on that building regardless of what we do with the capital improvement plan. He has provided some information on what it's going to take in square footage if we were to satisfy all of his needs out there. And I'm going to bring that back to you at a later date, but I'm believing that it'll probably be $2.5–3 million for that facility, just based on some rough numbers that I've looked at.
For the re-roof?
No, the re-roof.
It's a big roof.
No, that's on the roof.
Yeah, I see you got $100,000 on it. I've been saying, what you changing the
$100,000
figure?
for the re-roof. Now I'm talking about for the additional office space. Just,
Okay.
now this says additional office space. That $2.5–3 million is not additional. That's to replace what he has out there with square footages that he provided to me. And that could be a conservative number. The parking lot, I think I'd mentioned back, you saw that probably in the budget workshops as well. That's an improved parking lot out there where they are today, $75,000. Next item, our annex building in Branford, used to be a state inspection station, and it looks just like one. So there's $50,000 in here to put a new front on the building and paint the building. This would have to be bid out, but it would make it look much better than it looks today. We added a little concrete slab on the front and a little cover over the door on that thing about 5 years ago. In fact, I'll just tell you, Commissioner Fleming might remember this. At one time, the county was already planning to tear that building down.
Yep.
Someone had decided that it had mold in it, and they relocated the fire station that was down there at the time to Beachville. And when I got here, I asked if anyone had ever actually hired a study to be done to have someone go in and test for mold. The answer was no.
Full of mold.
In fact, it had already been bid out, and they were ready to tear it down.
Yeah.
So I asked them to hold off a little while and let's go ahead and have a test done. So we had it tested, and what it came back with was that there was almost no mold there. That if there was no more mold there than you would find walking around outside the building. So we came up with a plan, and insurance actually paid to have someone run around with sponges and clean the walls off. But we got some money, and we went ahead and remodeled that facility, and it's been in use since. The tax collector goes down there on occasion. Our public works personnel use the backside of that facility for clocking in and out every day. But it's always looked like just what it was when it started years ago. And I think we can maybe be better neighbors by fixing the front of that thing up and making it more appealing down there in that part of the county. The next building on here is next item on here is the collection center in Welborn. going to start that. I just want to give you a quick update. I spoke to all of you earlier in the year, a few months ago, about the overwhelming number of projects that we would have in the current year. And we do have an overwhelming number of projects. We're trying to save money where we can by utilizing some county staff. We plan to utilize them out there on that collection site. But all of our equipment, manpower right now is tied up in chip seal roads, and it's going to be that way for a while. So I'm going to try to figure out how to fit a weekend in, maybe 2 weekends, and see if we can go in there and blow out some of the base work on this thing, and then we'll have to bid out portions of it to see about having it paved. Transfer station floor, we'll have that ironed out with the company soon and go ahead and have that project, should have it hopefully completed within the next 60 to 90 days. But that was already approved by the board. Both of those are coming out of funds that are already in solid waste reserves. Those are not new funds that we have to come up with to accommodate those projects. You've talked about possibly constructing a fire station in the north part of the county.
Make a motion.
I second that one too.
I'm just going to tell you that Mr. Darabi, we've had some conversations with Mr. Darabi, who over the years has helped rural communities obtain funding for fire stations. In fact, he emailed me a copy of a floor plan for a combination EOC and fire station. I think he said he did it in McClenny. Nice facility. We spoke again over the holidays. He's going to come in and we're going to sit down and talk about a plan to try to identify funds, see if we can come up with funds, grant funds for that purpose or any part of that purpose. But I've given you a number, $750,000. It may be high, it may be low, but we'll try to firm this up later. It just depends on how large a facility we're building. The infrastructure projects are included. You actually voted some time back to add those to the capital improvement plan, so I'm just showing those in the plan. You've got two of those. One, the sewer plant, that's actually $3 million plus. I think it's maybe 3.1 or 3.2 for the sewer plant at I-75 and 136. That's a grant. And then the railroad crossing at the Catalyst site, I'm estimating that's going to be in the neighborhood of $1 million. This is the one that I told you recently. I spoke to the grant administrator, and he agreed that we could use the balance of the funds that were left over from the railroad spur project and move them to this crossing. I'm trying to gather information as quickly as possible. My plan is to come back in here with a task order for board consideration after I speak to the grant administrator and narrow this down on an engineer so that we can get started on that relocation of that crossing. And I'm not sure how much of that, it's my opinion that probably the majority of this work, if not all of it, is going to have to be conducted by CSX personnel because it's within their right-of-way. So I'll have to talk to them about the engineering on that to see if we're going to have any part in the engineering. And the $1 million number, it may be way low because we're dealing with CSX. But,
Union labor.
yeah. Mr. Pittman and I had spoken to, I don't know where he is, but we had spoken to a gentleman with DOT several months back when I was talking to the state about that crossing. And they wanted an estimate on what it would take to relocate the crossing. In fact, I think it was when we were working on a grant application. At that time, he gave me a number of $900,000, and it was based on a crossing that they had just worked on. So $900,000, $1 million, we're probably not too far off with that. Coliseum, renovation to Exhibition 2, got $75,000 in the budget, and Mr. Scott's gonna work on the specs for that. I'm sure Mark will help him, and then the three of us will sit down and try to come up with something that we will probably want to bid out, hopefully, because county staff is kind of tight right now. Everyone's loaded up. In any event, that's what we have for now. I don't know if I have forgotten anything.
There was one I was gonna ask you about, on the infrastructure, when we approved a while back, the water and sewer at 129, the sewer at 136 and I-75, we didn't include water in that one, or am I missing it? Or,
I don't have it down here on this list, but.
I know we did the sewer, I couldn't remember if we just left the water off.
I'm not sure.
The water supply at I-75 and 136 is not on this list. When we started the conversation back then, when we approved those initial ones, it wasn't on there.
Okay.
And we've had a lot of conversations since then with state personnel.
I just didn't know, I knew we'd had a lot of conversation going forward. I just didn't know if it was left off or if we left it off intentionally back in the original conversation. I couldn't remember.
I think we had,
We actually, I've
Made the
actually
application.
produced a number and sent it in. When we talked about the applications, we sent a number in.
Okay. So do we need to add it to it, or is that irrelevant at this point?
Well, we can add it to it. It isn't funded right now,
Oh, I
but I
understand.
don't have a problem adding it to it.
It's not funded and may never be funded, but that is in our long-range plan,
If
I
the board
believe.
wishes, I would love to see it on there.
I'd like to see it there.
I like to see it there.
So,
Okay?
Mr. Chairman, also asking a question.
Okay.
On the Branford Annex, I know when, a year ago, when I first came on, we went out there and visited it. Mr. Harris? We talked about the floor in the one room that used to be the garage area,
Right.
but potentially raising that floor up so that it's ADA compliant with bathrooms, and then possibly using that area for what I would hope to see as a couple of year commission meetings down there, or at least when we have an issue that's big down there that we can deal with. Is that something that we can talk about for the capital improvement plan as well, or is that something that should wait till get a number? What are you
What I would
looking at?
recommend on that is just if the commissioners say, yeah, let's come up with something for that, I would just, you're gonna need air conditioning out there. And I need to look at that facility, because I'm not sure if the exterior walls on that are insulated. There would not have been a reason to do that at the time it was being used as an inspection station.
Cool, yeah.
You think the outside walls are? Okay. Well, if that's the case, I'd probably, if you want to add $25,000 to this number, for that purpose, we could pour the floor on top of what's there. It's going to take some work now. You've got to raise your plumbing and
Yeah.
raise the doors. I would, with that front work, remove that door, build the front all the way across, maybe put a window in there. But we could raise the floor, we could make it ADA compliant. You'd have to raise all of those doors on, I think there are 2 doors on the inside and 1 to the outside then, an entry door. But then you'd need to air condition, you'd have to have climate control as well.
understand that.
So that's very doable. You want to add about
Right now, we don't have
25,000.
the use, really. We got anything going on that building? Well, that's what my suggestion on moving forward. When moving forward, I had talked to a couple of the members, about maybe holding them in that new building when they have it.
They own the Suburban Propane.
And they're remodeling it.
Are they gonna make it ADA compliant though, isn't it?
My understanding is that they're having their own meetings.
They're moving City Hall there, or Town Hall there.
Okay. They're gonna have to.
And they'll have a big
It's
room.
up off the ground.
I
Like we used to do here with the city.
Sure. No, I totally understand that, and I have a problem with that, because I asked them about their old one, and they said they're gonna be utilizing it for other purposes and offices, so, I think they're putting the fire department in there, so.
Fire station moving there, yeah.
Again, I don't have too much of an issue, just want to be able to have a place that we can have you know, a meeting. And I know that their current facility is so small
Yeah,
that,
10 people in this full.
yeah, it is.
But I think utilizing that one, if we can work out something like we have with the city, it saves our staff from having to go down there and install microphones, recording devices, or whatever we need to.
And maybe where we don't.
Just pour concrete, about 3.5 inches.
And the other thing is
I'll
in
go
the
that
future,
far.
that building, it does not, and of course, it doesn't have, we don't have a future purpose. Reality of it is,
That's what I was getting at.
other than that would be the only purpose that we'd have for it. But I would like to see that building if it's going to be kept. It's not ADA compliant at all, so.
No, but their housing is there, or that is my.
No, I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about the county
your current-
facility. It's not ADA compliant because of the bathrooms are accessible through the outside, right?
The office area is ADA
It is compliant, okay.
The office section is. The rear section,
Just that
only
section.
because we haven't
Okay,
ever held any meetings back there or anything, we haven't had to be concerned with that.
okay.
Yeah, new one.
I'd rather them spend the money than we have to.
Yeah.
I don't disagree.
All right, anything else? Any changes, anything? I know we talked about the jail and talked about the current building they're in on 136. How far out are we on that building? Do you think the repairs are going to be enough? Or are we looking at the next 4 to 5 years doing a reconstruction?
Sheriff, I have to speak to that. You're talking about
136, the
136.
crime,
we can take care of the roof sooner than later, but the other issue is one that the sheriff would have to speak to on that.
Yeah, we moved in there in 2004. This was the old Mostech building.
yeah.
Right now, we got 21 full-time employees in this building, but we only have 13 individual offices. You know, there's two or different offices. We got 3 employees that share one office. And, you know, there ain't but like a 10 by 12 office, so they're all that big. You know, basically, we've outrode it now. You know, as far as office space and you know, if we have any additional employees come there, there's just no room to put them at all.
No, I knew y'all were to the point of kind of busting at the seams in it, but because we've had conversations about it in the past, I just wondered where we are on a timeline, and I'll tell you my reason for that. If we start escrowing next year or the year after for a rebuild of the jail, I thought maybe that when we look for a site, the jail, that everything goes there instead of part of it out 136 and part of it out 90 or 129 or where have you, so that all your resources are in one spot.
Yeah,
That's what I was getting at it, but I didn't know where we were at in your needs, if that would fit in our plan, so to speak.
Yeah, I mean, it's like Ms. Harris was saying, you know, you're looking at, you know, 4 or 5 years or so for the jail, and like I say, we could use a, you know, building, you know, tomorrow if we could do that, but you know, we could, you know, squeak by and do what we can, you know, until that time frame. But yeah, we're, just like I say, we're busting the seams and can use one, you know, as soon as possible to accommodate us, because it's, you know, we're outrode it now. We're just you know, we're just making do.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, sir.
Sheriff, what happened to the offices that were in the courthouse that, I know when Sheriff Cameron was there, he had his office over in the courthouse, one of the courthouse annexes.
The finance department and the civil is still there.
Okay,
And in that there, you know, I moved from the courthouse to the criminal division, right, yeah. So one of them, the finance director has the old sheriff's office there, and the reason I done that, well, I just like there being, you know, where basically all the activity and all the different departments are there. It works out a lot better for me. Plus, it gives them more room, because they was cramped over there, in that part there, because you got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 employees over there with 3 offices there, you know. So that, you know, that helped me to move over there to kind of, you know, be in with the thick of things as far as, you know, the different departments and plus it gave them some more room there.
I'm just wondering if, since we're talking about, sounds like we're talking about shuffling the deck here a little bit on some of these buildings in anyway, as we move one group moves over here and we utilize their space, is there any space available that could get us past the point where we can go ahead and do the project? When we get to the point of doing the project for the jail, we do it all at one time. You know what I'm saying? Just get us another couple of years to deal with your space issues.
Well,
If it's not
yeah,
feasible, then it's not feasible.
yeah, well, like I say, we could, naturally we'd have to, just squeak by, but we could, get by with where we're at now for the criminal division, we could, like I say, they're good at the courthouse right now, since there's another office opened up. Now, naturally, I would, my opinion, the civil division would need to stay at the courthouse no matter where we built, because they go such hand in hand with the courthouse.
Okay.
Now, the finance and payroll could come to the new facilities. Right now they can't because there's no room at all, so they have to stay there where they're at.
Understand.
So if we did have new facilities, we'd leave the civil there and have the finance and payroll come to the new building.
Any other questions for the sheriff? Thanks, sir.
Yes, sir.
Anything else on here, Mr. Harris, other than the fact that we got more to do than we can afford to do?
No, sir. What I was going to propose is at least every other weekend throwing a car wash or a bake sale. Because you're going to be hard pressed to generate enough revenue with your current sources to fund what you're going to need to set aside in escrow. What I envision
Just
honestly is,
escrowing for the jail pretty much wipes everything out.
that's correct. Takes everything out.
Can we sell bricks?
Pardon me?
Can we sell bricks?
That'd be nice.
True.
Sorry, something that someone said earlier.
But this just gives you a feel as a managing tool, a planning tool, to figure out where we need to be going forward. The alternative is that we react when a constitutional officer walks in the door and says, "Oh, by the way, I need you to spend $5 million on a new building for me." I've seen that before. So if we can be proactive and start setting some money aside. Now, I'm not as concerned with the infrastructure side of this. Maybe I should be, but I'm thankful that we've been so successful with the grants that we've applied for on the infrastructure side. Clearly, the backbone to economic development is infrastructure. That and a qualified workforce. But if we can get the infrastructure in place and continue to apply for grants, Mr. Hale is going to try to save us some money on electricity by
Doing my part. Doing my
air
part.
conditioning. But if we continue
Got my breathing a
to
lot.
work on these grants for economic development, as long as the legislature is funding those, you know that a year and a half ago, there were big arguments between the governor and the legislature over these grants for economic development. And I think probably most of those are for infrastructure in communities throughout the state. But as long as they are available, I know a lot of people don't like grants. They hate to hear that word. But the reality is, and I've said this before, this is simply structured to be seed money for communities like ours that need help getting started so that someday we are self-sustaining and we've got the economic development jobs that we need in the community. So unless the board tells us otherwise in the future, we'll continue to apply for these as aggressively as we can. But it's these other issues that we're going to ultimately have to struggle with, is the bricks and mortar. And our obligation is to provide the space for not only all of the departments that are under the Board of County Commissioners, but constitutional officers as well. And it's a struggle to do that for every community. But it's certainly better when you have a visual on what's going to be required going forward.
Anything else? So do I have a motion to approve the changes to the capital improvement plan?
Make a motion.
Got a motion by Commissioner Sessions. Do I have a second?
Second.
Got a second by Commissioner Fleming. Any further discussion?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I just one question, that water plant, is that where we were adding that to that?
Yes, sir. Mr. Chairman, I wrote in a water plant at, to service the interchange by I-75 and County Road 136. The figure I used is $3.2 million.
I used 3 million, so we're close on that.
Close.
3.2 is cool. And that's another one of those projects, we're not seeking local dollars, we're applying for grant dollars, pretty much all those infrastructure projects.
That's correct.
And it's grant dollars, but we're not creating new grants. That's grant dollars that are already created, and if we don't apply for them, that's our tax dollars going to another community instead of coming back home. Any other questions about changes?
Just, did the motion include that change?
My intent was to include the changes.
Thank you.
My second.
All right. Got a motion and a second on the floor. Any other questions, concerns? Hear none, all in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed, same sign. Tell you what, budget time, when we address this, you're going to have your work cut out for you if we start escrowing, because we're going to have to make a lot of changes. Well, not a lot of changes, but that's a lot of money to put aside.
Yeah. More money we got.
All right. Moving on to item number 12, discuss with possible board action recommendations from the Douglas Center workshop.
Were there?
Don't think we had any recommendations.
Chairman, I would like to thank my colleagues and the support, and I wish that the people were here now. I enjoy seeing people from the community come, especially the people that voted for me, but the whole county as a whole. When it comes to county government, sometimes we are not informed, and we get little bits and, without understanding. But I was glad to see all the individuals here, and for them to come up and pour their heart and soul into the concerns about the Douglas Center. And I think it's very good. Now, Ms. Philpott stated that she asked about a private group purchasing the Douglas Center. If that be the case, I'll be first off in the motion, and that we do so. Or if Mr. Ford, you're here, the Douglas Alumni Association would like to take on this project for a certain amount of years, I would certainly most entertain a motion. So I just wanted to bring that out, and I really appreciate those individuals coming and sharing their thoughts and having this discussion. I think it went over a little longer than I anticipated, but it did bring out some things. Did we get anything accomplished? Well, we're back to square one almost.
I think we did. I think some of the people that may have had a little more of an open mind than I anticipated they would, and got to see both sides of the situations, seeing where some of the money's coming from and where some of the money's going, and kind of got a feel for the board's actual direction on what we're trying to do. They may not have liked it, but I think they have a better understanding of it today than they did
right.
yesterday.
It would also allow the individuals to see, how the funding process, how it goes, reality, that is real, it's for real and very real when it comes to the funds. So I just want to bring that out, and
Well, the big thing I heard was, through the discussion, was the historical value, the historical importance and the preserving of it. And we've already set precedent in Suwannee County on dealing with historical buildings, on the way we go through it as far as setting aside a commission. And I'm for going that route, a commission or a nonprofit. Mr. Pat, Mr. Harris, let them work on something for us to consider.
If we direct staff to sit down with individuals, Ms. Philpott,
But if we do it with the nonprofit has to be willing to assume ownership of it. If the nonprofit's not, you can create a historical committee, just like we created the historical committee for the train depot, and you appoint. And if stakeholders want to be part of it, then they can make it known that they want to be appointed. You can even create a larger board than just 5. You can make a 9-member board and have 4 stakeholders and 3 district appointed, or 5 district appointed.
but I also like the idea when it said that, a commissioner from each district appoints.
Yeah.
1, 2, because I saw people here tonight from all parts of the county, and some from out of the county.
Yeah,
So-
the stakeholders aren't confined to one district. They're scattered across the country at this point. But the ones in Suwannee County are in every district, and I don't think it'd be hard for each commissioner to come up with an appointment. But if there's committee members from the Douglas alumni that wish, I don't see why we can't create 4 seats, have 5 appointed and 4 non-appointed, or just a 5-member board. But either way, it will reflect the public's wishes, because you've got opinions coming in from the public, and it takes the politics out of it because it's not on the board anymore.
Mr. Chairman, just the perception from the meeting, there seems to be, most of the contention on this project or this property seems to be in the buildings. The buildings, specifically the old school buildings. But yet, the fields, everything, the rest of the property, I think that it can be, we can come up with a good solution with Parks and Recreations. I'm just wondering if we shouldn't separate the 2 of them and deal with, let Parks and
Yeah, I would,
Recreation deal with.
if we turned it over, I would ask the board you couldn't turn over EOC, and you couldn't turn over, I wouldn't turn over the,
No, obviously not ELC, but
or the gymnasium.
I would even go as far as including the entire field beside the gymnasium, so that Parks and Recreation can deal with that one, and the buildings can be dealt with, since that seems to be the point of contention. Maybe I'm
But
misreading.
a commission, a historical commission or a nonprofit has the ability to apply for the same grants that the county has the ability to apply for, as far as historical status goes. And as far as the remodel of the buildings through local tax dollars, unless you got a governmental use for those buildings, it's not going to happen.
I understand that.
That's just the fact of the matter. You got to have a legitimate governmental use to put that kind of money in it. And after going through our capital improvement plan and see where you need to start escrowing $1.5 million a year,
for jail.
it's
And
just
I'm
not going to
not
happen.
suggesting that there be remodel. I'm suggesting that the group deals with the buildings, period. And that way, we can move on with the things that we need to move on with.
Well, that's what I'm getting at. If the committees, if the committee is over the buildings, they're over the grants, then it's their decision, their choice.
And I'm definitely not suggesting that we take the monkey off our backs. I'm just simply saying that if the contention is there, then I think the community and the stakeholders needs to figure out what they want to, how they want to move forward.
Yeah.
And
And to me, when you place that power back in their hands, that's what it does.
that's right.
And correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Attorney, but even on the historical mission, when they go to apply for a grant, they pick the grant, they fill out the paperwork, they apply for it, but they still come back to the board.
Yes.
and have the board sign off on them applying for it. So they're not just going out there willy-nilly applying for different grants.
So they get our permission to apply for the grant.
Right. So they still have the backing
Yes.
and the support of the county commission moving forward. It's still an extension of the board as a historical commission. It's just their individual motives and desires is that of that commission and not this commission.
Yes, because what I see in this commission is we have really no consensus on the use of any buildings out there. And if they want to design a strategic plan that deals with them, I think that would be a good way of doing it. However, Parks and Recreation utilizes the fields and the gymnasium and the rest of the property, and that's why I would suggest separating these out, and if we did this, giving them the buildings and that part of the land, and let us deal with the Parks and Recreation part of it. That makes sense? I guess
No,
one side of the road is one, and one side of the road is the other, right?
I follow you.
Well, what I'm suggesting and maybe thinking on these terms of, if this were to come about, then, as Commissioner Richardson said, ain't trying to pass the buck, but we got to know where, don't want to put the cart before the ox. And we got to know how somebody else is thinking, how the other group is thinking, and when we're making the decision, and the other group is thinking. Now, I plainly sit and listen tonight, and after the discussions and after all the talk, and I'm sitting like, listen, wow, if we sit down, or the group sit down, appointed group sit down, now you know what direction that you want to go in. It's been said here all night. So that would actually take the commission out of it to where, it ain't like taking the monkey off your back and you're putting it on the committee. But it is also like that because it's taking you out of it.
It's taking the opposite side of the equation off of it and giving it to the group that can make the decisions. Let's move them, let them make the decisions. And no longer is it something that they're going to fight with the board over. But they still have the conditions upon which they have to meet to get them done within so much.
We've done it before and it's worked successfully. I mean, the passenger depot has been restored. It's in use. You can rent it tomorrow if you want to use it for whatever reason. It houses the museum. They apply for grants. I think they came to us not too long ago and applied for a grant to redo the roof.
Yep.
So there's precedent. I think we just asked Mr. Harris and Mr. Pravat to draft us up a proposal that has what our expectations are as far as maintenance, a timeline on it, and just kind of mirror the historical commission. And I think at this point, rather than trying to find a nonprofit that's interested in taking it over, because I doubt you're going to find one that's willing to step up and take it over, that you do a board-appointed historical commission. You can call it the Douglas Historical Commission, or I mean, whatever the board wants to call it.
I agree.
Mr. Ford. Is this something that the Douglas alumni would like to entertain?
Yes, I've been listening to this, and to be frank with you, I'm not smart enough to kind of understand all the implications of it, but it sounds on the surface like a prudent way to kind of go forward on it.
Mr. Chairman, I think what Chairman Richardson suggested and what they're going with is it would give the community, the public, more of a mouthpiece and more of a direction as to how to steer this bus and where they want to see it in.
Right. I understand
saying?
that, and that's the part I like on it. But like I say, my concerns is kind of weighing in the back of my mind that these buildings that have been there and underused and deteriorated over the last probably 20 years. And, so, and I don't know what kind of expectation of what they plan on doing with those buildings. Some need to come down, so we need to have a plan on, the one or two buildings that will be remaining that perhaps could be mothball or something put away until some, if not historical grant, but some other grant that may come available, that may, come by to kind of refurbish them to certain usable condition,
Did you just say one or two remaining? We was at 4 a while ago.
Well, I'm talking about the two, the wings and stuff. I'm not talking about the individual part of it, but some need to come down,
I do, I agree.
It's financially suicide to try to maintain, or with a thought that they're going to be maintained, because some need to come down. It need to be a plan, though, and say we're going to keep, obviously, my preference would be that first wing and that cafeteria wing, and, other parts of it, can be managed with the parks and
But
other kind of.
The hard
basis,
part
I
for
guess.
the county, outside of a grant, is finding a use. We have to have a use. And in the past, before the different things happened with buildings moving, we talked about storage and remodeling it and providing all the constitutionals with storage. That's an
Right.
actual governmental use, preserves the building, but it doesn't tell a story.
Right.
And I think the only way that you're going to get to that point where you tell the story and preserve the building is through the same lines as the train depot with some sort of commission that has the ability to go out on its own and search and research out grants.
After you take down some of them buildings and keep something that's maintainable,
The
but-
question that I asked you, was you willing to,
Sure.
Sure.
Sure. It sounds good to me on the surface, like I say, but I got them big buildings in the back of my mind, and I don't want you to kind of dump on somebody that need to be addressed.
My thought behind it is if we have a private organization who utilize those buildings for things that we don't have to search out specific uses for.
You don't, but if you turn them over to a private organization to use them,
That's right.
then it's another ballgame. Then you lose your tax exempt on them, you start paying proper tax on it. It becomes a whole nother different ballgame when you start entering into leasing them to the private sector.
Part of my part of my idea has always been either some sort of community center or or even better yet, a community arts center, something that Suwannee County really doesn't have, would be a good place somewhere in that building, in that area. But I mean, it's my idea, and our brother here, District 2, has his ideas, and I'm sure otherwise everyone else has their own ideas that range from tearing them all down and starting over again to restoring them completely. And that's why I believe that the buildings themselves need to be dealt with by the community. And when the community deals with this through this, basically, we're talking about the society.
Right.
And the community wins better because they get everything that they're looking for.
Right, the Douglas Center is very compassionate, and just with the announcement of the meeting, the workshop, it said future of Douglas Center. And when we get here, it was kind of articulated that the thrust up would be, considering the pavilion and stuff, it was kind of like a bait and switch, and, even though we talked about.
But that's part of the future use, okay?
and I know it's of significance to a lot of the individuals, and it has values to a lot of individuals because they went there, and I can understand. So I'm sitting up absorbing some things that were said, and at the same time, I feel like some of the individuals felt like the board was trying to be deceiving, and that was not the case. So now, I'll be willing to offer a motion that we direct staff, attorney, to work with you and the Douglas Alumni Association to come up with the plan.
Sure.
Second.
Right, yeah. Right.
No, you can speak. You
Right.
step to the podium, say your name.
Well,
and address for the
it's just going to be staff is going to come back with some proposal, and then that proposal will drive who's going to be on it and all that stuff.
And everybody gonna be
Yeah,
happy.
Right.
we're not asking them to come up with a finished product.
Right,
We're asking-
exactly.
Yeah.
Would you
Yeah,
satisfied with that?
It sounds good to me.
Mr. Chairman, I offer a motion that we do.
Let me ask for
Go
clarification.
ahead.
because I know Mr. Prafat's going to if I don't. You want us to come back with a draft of a commission for this purpose
Yes, sir.
that will have appointed
They have the,
persons serving on
have the
this?
staff name, address, and all the information.
I think so, because I think that if you're trying to seek into a nonprofit, that there may be conditions placed on the nonprofit agreement to take it that we may not want to enter into.
Okay, do you want 5 members appointed by each commissioner and 3 at large, or 5 at large, or
Say,
2 at large, or?
Good odd.
Decimal members.
That way there's a majority.
I can live with 2 to 4, an odd number.
Yeah,
So we have 9 or 7.
From each commissioner?
No, if I'd say 5
No, one for
appointed,
each.
and maybe 2 at large, 4 at large.
Large.
You always want to have that
You need 7 or 9.
Yeah, 7 or 9.
7 or 9.
Yeah,
I would feel comfortable with 9.
that's fine.
You've got 5 and 4.
They're
have to
all
go to
board
the podium
appointed, but 5 of them will come from a district. They
be
can fill out an
appointed by the
application like everybody else, like we have the process where you can fill out an application. Yes, ma'am.
I just have one question.
Okay.
It's just
State your
only
name
gonna
and
be a
address.
proposal. It's just only gonna be a proposal that.
State your name.
you see. My name is Ernestine Fleming.
and
Thank you.
What is-
address.
My address is 206 Lewis Avenue Southwest, Live Oak, Florida.
Thank you.
Better get it straight.
My question is, the proposal that Mr. Ford is gonna turn in, is it just his organization that can put in for,
To be appointed to the commission?
is it only the Douglas Alumni Association that put in?
No.
No,
To-
it'll be this board.
No, that's not what I'm asking. Mr. Ford is putting in for the Douglas High School alumni, correct?
Who's the committee?
Here's.
Well, we don't have a committee yet.
We want to have,
I know
Is it
that.
only
let us
that-
make a
Is it
proposal.
only gonna
No.
be this
No.
group?
No,
No.
no,
No.
that's what
It's
I'm
going to
saying.
be stakeholders at large.
No, that's what I,
That'll be 4 at large. That means 4 could come from that group, or what? Anybody could apply. 5 would come from within the district lines of each district. So
they would be appointed by the commission.
that would be appointed.
And there's a
by-
reason behind that. It's because, number one, if the taxpayers are going to be dealing with a lot of this, then the taxpayers should have a say in what's going on. And then also should be a county, not just community-wide, but county-wide project. And I think that helps. Plus, we have, I believe we have alumni in every district, so
Yeah, there's,
You only represent the alumni group, that's.
we're not.
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah,
no, it's not only,
Yeah.
it's not only that group.
right, yes, yes.
I do believe that the alumni should have a voice in it, and they ought to make their voice heard. But I also, because otherwise, then you start watering down this whole discussion we had basically today was a waste of time.
Yeah.
And I think there ought to be a
It's not.
voice.
Hey, guys,
It was a history lesson for me. I mean,
Yeah.
it really was.
Let me just tell you, for those that may not be familiar, there are applications, standard forms that we have for all committees that applicants will be able to come in and fill out. Those applications come back to the board for board consideration.
Problem we have with most committees is nobody fills out an application to apply to be on a committee.
And I would most certainly say that I was
Not a paid
glad that,
position.
the outcome, some of the outcome and how it turned out, and Mr. Ford is the only one here. And I want to say to you, because I know who supply, I know who do all things, and that's him. And there's no hard feelings with him and I. I want to say that publicly. There's no hard feelings. We may disagree, but at the end of the day, when it comes to when we got to lay down and leave this earth, we got to be at peace with each other. And I just want to say that. I didn't get a chance to say it to the others, they left, but I just feel at peace.
Well, I didn't write it down. I had a motion on it.
I gave them a motion.
Second.
Can you restate it?
Let me see how.
I didn't write it
Mr.
down.
Pravat and I know what needs to be done.
Okay.
Okay, as long as y'all
Offer
understand.
motion- Offer motion that we direct county staff to get with the Douglas Alumni Association.
No.
I done made it wrong.
No.
Anyway.
My understanding is that Mr. Pravat and I are going to
Yes, okay.
assemble the process for a committee to be formed in which applications, with 9 members, in which applications will then thereafter be entertained and brought back to the board
You said it.
consideration.
I'm good with that.
So
Second.
moved. Got a motion by Commissioner Fleming, second by Commissioner Richards. Any further discussion?
I just have one question.
Yes.
My name is Tammy Motley, and I live at 619 Fifth Street. Just clarification on your motion. When we're talking about the outbuildings, we're still just talking about, not saying both sides of the road, but we're talking about this committee that you're wanting to form by application and all, but we're talking about the buildings and not the gym.
We're not not talking about.
We're talking about the gym staying within the county
Yes, ma'am.
ownership.
Yes, ma'am.
That was my question.
And for the time being, EOC.
And the EOC building.
Right.
And the EOC building.
Yes.
I got a motion and a second on the floor. Any further discussion? Hear none, all in,
Question after y'all vote on
all right,
this.
let's get the vote down. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Yes, sir.
Does the board wish to make a decision on the pavilion? And the only reason I'm asking is because the contractor will be out there starting the restrooms, and because of the concrete and foundation work associated with it, it needs to tie in if it's going to be there. It doesn't have to, we can come back in later and drill and epoxy something into the footing to tie them together, but it would certainly be better to do it at one time if you're going to do it.
My whole reason for it was to decide what we were going to do with the rest of the Douglas Center, to decide whether we wanted a freestanding pavilion or one tied to the bathroom. If we're going to turn it over to a committee.
Well, we weren't going to turn that part over to committee.
No. I mean, if we're going to turn the Douglas.
Oh, yeah.
Other buildings over to a committee, then that kind of leaves us back where we are at with the pavilion attached to the building, and if Mr. Fleming wants to offer a motion.
I'm offering a motion that we attach that pavilion onto those bathrooms.
Got a motion
That's a motion.
by Commissioner Fleming. Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Got a second by Commissioner Richardson. I was going to pass the gavel, but I didn't know if I could do that.
What, how much was that? The old-
58,000
$58,000.
from contingency.
Okay.
Any discussion?
This is all under one, basically it's going to take in the whole roof, roof's going to be connected, it's going to look like a big long building, right?
Yes.
And there was no other way, I know you had some discussions, excuse me, Mr. Chairman, for Mr. Harris. Did you have some discussions with the contractor of maybe reducing that cost, or it wasn't able to be done?
Well, no, what he did was ran numbers on a freestanding pavilion
That's right,
as an alternative.
that's right.
And I
Let me
think
clarify something on this roof, only because I can't remember now. I don't remember if that roof line is straight out or not, okay? And the only reason I say that is because, does it drop down because of the change in the elevation? See, when you come out of those restrooms will then be ADA compliant, because we're going to ramp back down to the ground at a proper slope for wheelchair access. And those ramps will come down and terminate next to the floor level of the pavilion, which is, I'm going on memory, I think it's like 28 to 30 inches higher, the gymnasium floor, than the finished grade out there. Because of that, that roof may drop down. Now, you've got your roof for the restrooms, so the roof for the pavilion may be a little bit lower than that, but it is a continuation of the back.
It's not
of the
detached.
building. No, it's not detached, it's part of it.
It's accessible from inside and out, using the restrooms? from
That's
in-
correct. You'll be able to open, currently on the south end of the gymnasium, you've got 2 sets of double doors that they currently open and turn the fans on inside to help with circulation. The new doors then on the restroom facility will be within, I think, 5 feet of those doors, and they'll be on the east and west side of a large hallway that I think is 10 foot across, that runs the whole length of the addition. Your restrooms are beyond that. So it'll have access from inside the gymnasium if they leave those doors locked on the new addition and open the other doors. They can come in and just use the restrooms. In the wintertime, they don't have to open those other doors, but in the summertime, they can open them, turn the fans on. It'll still create the air circulation inside. Or they can close the doors to the back of the gymnasium, open the other doors if they're just using the fields, and then no one can get inside the gymnasium, but they can still use the restroom.
Gotcha.
Any other questions? Yes, sir.
What's the width of the restrooms and width of the pavilion?
I think it's 80 feet, 81 feet maybe.
Only cons-
It's too large to bring a truss in and do it like you would with a freestanding facility. You'd have,
Just remember, on the back side of that, we'll have the improvements on the ball fields. And if you've got to catch water, you have to do that somewhere other than the ball fields. I'll let y'all figure that out.
There's a lot of land out there, right?
Not in that area next to the ball.
Not what he's talking about.
well, at least you won't have to
catch
worry
water and pipe
about
it.
flooding inside. That's the only building that doesn't
You can catch
probably have flooding problems. Most
Right.
of the others do,
You have to run it
because
to
they were
the
built
front.
flat on the ground.
Well, it had that drained that water back out.
Drains you put in it.
But there aren't any retention ponds out there at all.
No retention ponds, but through gutters and you can get it. Isn't there a swell that goes back out to the road right there? It's
I can create a swale on the backside along pavement, just beyond the edge of the pavement there, between there and the fields.
gotcha.
Just run it as long as I have to, back toward the volleyball, what used to be volleyball back there.
Can we also add a change order to the contractor's job to apply a fresh coat of paint in that bathroom? Or,
We can probably have inmates do that.
well, let's have inmates do it.
Let's get it done.
That's fine.
That way we don't have to hear about that one no more.
Yeah,
Okay,
just buy the
paint,
Paint.
paint.
and let the inmates.
You want a brush washer, get all this stuff up, so scrape it.
Will Mark handle that? Mark gonna handle that for you?
We'll purchase the paint and see about having the sheriff loan us some inmates to do that. That's what we did inside the jail. We painted those cells, I think, 2 years ago.
No, that works.
Okay, we don't
I
need a
just,
motion
no,
for
no,
the
no,
paint.
he can take care of that. I'm just looking to get it done since I heard that come up quite a bit during the workshop.
Right, okay.
All right, got a motion and a second on the floor. Any further discussion? I wrote this one down. Hearing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. All right, moving on to item 13, discuss with possible board action. Any issues associated with the wastewater plant at I-75 County Road
I don't have anything
136?
to add on that right now.
Gotcha.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes,
before we get off of the Douglas Center completely, I just want to ask if we can, I know we had mentioned last meeting, you had mentioned about getting and looking into those vents on the Douglas Center gym and see if we can get those vents working.
what were they called? The,
Louvers,
yeah.
The old louvers.
Do you have any information on it?
No, I just need to find someone that can fabricate those in order to repair them. So I'll just have to.
Usually
find
just
that.
got a chain.
Okay, I'm trying to ask you, if you would, please.
All right.
Thank you.
All right, do we have any additional just agenda items? I don't believe I had any. Only thing, is Sheriff still here? You handed us out a thing about the emergency management meetings you had this morning. Do you mind touching on that for us? I know I've gotten some information from several other counties that they are closing or operating at a later time tomorrow.
Right.
The board up to speed
I
on.
mean, on that map, you see, Suwannee County is right in the middle of where it's supposed to be the ice pellets, snow, and the freezing rain. Now, this is all supposed to take place tonight, or actually in the morning, about 4 o'clock in the morning till about 10 o'clock, and one report says till about 1 in the afternoon. We can expect power outages, tree damage, likely due to the ice on the trees and the lines. It says travel will be dangerous, nearly impossible, including during the morning commute hours on Wednesday morning. They're predicting snow accumulation up to 3 inches and ice accumulation of 1/10 to 1/2 inch are expected. Then you got the chill factors of 30 above 0 to 10 above 0. And like I say, the biggest time when this is going to take place is between 4 o'clock this morning until, well, actually, they go until 5 o'clock p.m. Wednesday, but I think that some of the reports is from 4 in the morning until 10 o'clock in the morning till 10, and one is at 1 o'clock in the afternoon. So basically is that, and then this is from the 3 o'clock update. Now, I just got another update that I didn't get a chance to print out. Everything is the same except they're expecting more rainfall or more rain, which naturally going to be, either more ice or more snow on the ground. I think is around 80% is what the prediction is. So, it all looks like is that, definitely we're going to have some rain or some either rain, freezing rain, snow, or ice on the ground early in the morning. And naturally, this is when everybody goes to work. I'm not sure who all was here in '89 when it snowed back in '89, but I was working then. And guys, it's no matter how fast you go or how slow you go, you have no control of your vehicles. And naturally, everybody in Florida doesn't know how to drive in snow or ice. And so the biggest thing is for everybody, if you ain't got to go nowhere, please stay at the house.
That's right.
Because it's just you have no control once you get on that ice. Your brakes don't function like they're supposed to. When you steer, it steers whatever way the momentum's going. So it don't look like it's. In one report, they said that whatever the temperature rises to tomorrow, it may thaw the ice out or whatever. But then the potential again, once it gets back to freezing again Wednesday night or Thursday morning, then we're going to have some black ice. So I guess the prediction don't look good for us. I don't think it's going to last all that long, but just we just need to. We put the word out on our Facebook page. I know James has on his and the EOC webpage, and so we're just trying to put the word out to everybody. If they don't have to come out, don't come out. Yeah. Now, I'm not sure. No, I had Barry Baker come to the meeting, and I told him I'd get with him later. I'm not sure if y'all wanted to do anything about the county offices. I'm telling my office personnel just to wait till come in about 12 o'clock, or just call about 12, just to the non-essential employees. Naturally, I'm going to have all my officers out, stationed in their zones out throughout the whole county. And tell them not to drive unless they get a call, and we can play it by ear to see how bad the snow and ice is going to be, in the morning.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
unlike the sheriff, all of our people are essential. I'm kidding you, Sam, that was a joke. I'm going to tell you the truth. For the same reasons that we told county employees to stay home after that hurricane, for many of them, it's going to be worse if we have ice.
Oh, yeah.
I'd like for the board to consider letting those employees stay at home that are not critical to the emergency tasks that we might encounter. And we know who they are and who to call to make those types of things happen if we have to, but it's just going to be difficult if the ice is over. No one knows for sure. It appears that there's a real good chance that's going to be the case. I don't want people out here that work for the county running up and down these roads if we can tell them to stay at home. Is it going to cost us anything? Well, it would cost us the same thing as if they showed up. And that's all budgeted, so it ain't going to cost you anything more than what you've already got budgeted for those people right now. But there's a better chance. I used the word in the last meeting that, when I was talking about getting an extension of time for an employee that was going through some medical condition, but he's an extremely valuable asset to us. And I think that all of our county employees are, and I'm sure the sheriffs are as well. But I'd like the board to at least consider allowing us to contact everyone that we can tonight and have them let their personnel stay at home, except for some that we would routinely call for emergency situations.
Yeah.
And then maybe we could meet again tomorrow, the sheriff, the chairman, and I, and board members if you want to, over at the EOC, or if we can't get there, call. We can at least talk on the telephones and try to figure out.
I'm fine with that.
We won't be able to do that because of the sunshine law with all of the commissioners. We can talk to the chairman, the three of us at one time. Y'all just can't communicate. So if you want to discuss it amongst yourselves right now and decide what you want to do, and if you want to authorize the chairman to make a decision, we can do that tomorrow.
Yeah,
Allow the chairman to do that.
No, just this, kind of like a hurricane, you just don't know how bad it's going to be until it gets here, you know, but all prediction looks like it's, we're going to have some snow and ice on the ground.
You need this on a motion?
Yeah,
or
go ahead and make a motion, Bill.
Offer motion that we allow the chairman to execute.
First, two things. First is, can we go ahead tonight, contact personnel and tell them to stay at home?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Call in.
Yeah, two
Certain
city.
Yeah, the second motion would be to authorize the chairman to work with the sheriff and me to make a decision sometime tomorrow, about after tomorrow.
Offer motion that we authorize the chairman and the county administrator along with the sheriff to have the meeting to execute if the employees need to be off or not.
I second it.
Got a motion by Commissioner Fleming, second by Commissioner Sessions. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All
Now, I'm
opposed,
not
same
so
sign.
fortunate because I got my,
Steve, was that a part of that motion? The first one of going ahead and contacting them tonight?
I thought it was only one motion, so we need another one.
I move that you can contact them tonight, let them know.
second.
85 people.
So give them, not coming in tomorrow, contact them tonight. Got a motion by Commissioner Richardson, second by Commissioner Fleming. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign.
All right, well, now, I'm not so fortunate because I keep my phone here and they hadn't called me, so I got to get out there in it.
I'd say if you can roll up a snowball, then don't come in.
Y'all stay here for a minute. I want to talk to you before you run on back.
What did I do with my?
Thank you, Sheriff.
All right. Moving on to item 15, public concerns and comments. Anyone wishing to speak,
Thank you, Beth.
step to the podium. Go another 3 minutes. Seeing none, we'll move on to administrator comments and information. Hearing none, we'll move on to item 17, public, or board members' requests, comments. Start out here, Ms. Richardson.
I think I can wait.
Mr.
I
Fleming.
just wish everybody a happy new year. Enjoy the next few weeks.
I don't have anything. I just want everybody to get out here before it starts.
Mr. Hill.
I'm trying to say.
Have nothing, sir.
Sessions.
I've got to take care of 185 people in 3 counties, going to 5 counties tomorrow during this mess. And it's going to be hard for us to get a hold of all of them. We're going to have to operate as planned, and I'll be in my operation about 3:30 in the morning to make sure it all is going good.
That it? Other than that, wish everybody a happy new year. Sheriff, one more thing?
I forgot to mention too, now, we'd kind of had Floyd about opening a shelter, but, we hadn't done anything with that. I think it's going to be such a short event, because we talked to the Red Cross, they can bring out food and cots and blankets and so forth, but they won't have no one to man it.
We don't have anybody to bring the people there either.
Yeah, and we've talked to a couple of churches, and they're kind of undecided, so we hadn't heard, but far as shelters, we hadn't done anything with that just yet, just to let y'all know.
Thanks, sir. Other than that, happy new year. Hope everybody stays safe, and got a motion to adjourn? Thank you all for coming out.